the Higher Heights presidential debate and Black women lead spin room. We've just walked away from our phones, our laptops, our computers, with probably some things to say, not to say, lots of things to say. Thank you for joining us. Many of you are still hanging out in the chat room. We are going to be in conversations with two of my faves of the SIP hour, Judith Brown Dianis from the Advancement Project Action, and Fatima Gosgraves from the National Women's Law Center Action. Hey, y'all. He
Hey.
says, one, we still up. So I go to bed early these days. So
hmm
I'm impressed with the aunties up past 10:30,
Yes, it was
and
hard
we're
though.
here for you. Higher heights.
it's long. Many of my friends have tapped out. They were either drinking. I think the three of us have no drinks,
No
which
drinks,
is
daggone it.
unusual for us. Presidential debates are an important part of our democracy. And so, although we're going to have lots to say about the kickoff to the road to 2024, this is an important moment in our democracy, right? The two people coming vying for our votes came before the people. This was like the Super Bowl of the Super Bowl, like we were waiting for Prince to come out and perform. I mean, it ended up being streamed on almost every network, on every streaming service. This has gotten in the hands in the living rooms of America. So first, takeaways, Judith.
It was the biggest live fest ever. I mean, I'm really just disappointed in the way CNN handled this and allowed Trump to just lie, lie, lie. That's like my biggest takeaway about this was that, when we're in an election season where we are concerned about disinformation and misinformation, they allowed it to happen. And that is very worrisome because there was no checking. There was no pushback on anything. So that's one. And then I would say the other is I felt like um, Biden was laying out what he's done and what he's going to do. And Trump is just like, just don't vote for him. I'm the best. I'm the greatest. Vote for me.
I
Womp womp.
mean, listen, the lies were wild. They were
Mhm.
wild on the small things, like everybody has nominated me as the best ever, best, my golf game. Like they were wild on the things that didn't matter. And then wild on the things that actually really, really matter. So he was trying to use the debate forum to rewrite a lot of really historical points in real time and confuse everyone on his actual positions. So maybe it was the format of the debate or the moderators. I couldn't tell,
Mhm.
that like there were no rules around fact checking. So I guess that was a silly rule to agree to. Uh, but the moderators were kind of just there to
Mhm.
keep time
Mhm.
poorly. And that didn't really
Yeah,
do us like that did not help people in this country understand where these two candidates are or
Right.
understand truth from not truth.
Mhm. Yep. I mean,
I agree.
even to the extent of like that abortion piece with him talking about and you're okay with whipping a baby. Uh-oh, here comes the dog. Welcome to my
The
home.
dog is unhappy. So the
Yes, I
dog did
mean,
not
Buddy
like
is
the
like,
answer.
this is yes. But the fact that he could say ripping a baby out the womb and then killing it is abortion.
Right.
What? What are you
So
talking about?
I have to say, Trump, and he did it tonight, has taken credit for building the Supreme Court that overturned Roe. And so he owns all the devastation that has happened around this country, including now we're continuing to be in limbo about whether or not hospital rooms are going to be able to tell women who come in that you need to bleed it out until you're near death.
Right.
Like that is terrifying given the maternal mortality rate in this country, especially for Black women. So it's a serious issue where we deserve to actually understand the facts and what his position is. And on both, there was no one to challenge him. It's not a format that actually serve people in this country who are in the position of choosing democracy and freedom or authoritarianism in this period. Like it's that stark.
Yeah, particularly the reason why we have debates in this format of a trusted news source. I agree that the moderators had questions. I don't know if it was the whole pulling everything back. The only person that chose not to pull back was Donald Trump. I do think from a prep perspective, President Biden laid out his top tiered policy priorities that are in line with what voters are talking about. I do think there was a disservice, possibly in a debate prep, of him not engaging, because it then felt like there was no engagement. He was waiting for his turn, and it allowed Trump to rebuttal in fiction, and then not checking that. So I definitely think they're going to adjust that if I know there's one schedule, but if there's another debate. I will also say this is some basic thing, like the notion that they couldn't have water, right? And you had someone that was struggling who needed water was a like, why? No, why? So just some of the reasons why things were in place. I think they needed to have an opening statement to ground them both.
Mhm. Yeah.
That would have allowed there to be the whole format. I'd be like, I'll probably never be on scene. It was just trash. It was trash.
Well, I don't know that it was like a whole network that was trash, but those moderators, I
It was
mean, you might not be able to go on their
the
show.
format.
They
Whoever
did
the
not
format
have a
was
good night. They just didn't have a good night.
No.
Sometimes you
No.
don't have a good night. And I have to say this, and maybe, folks in the chat may, I thought it took President Biden a long time to warm up in this debate.
Oh, he needed another half
And
hour.
and unfortunately, one of the most important questions, the question of reproductive freedom, was in those first few minutes. It was like, question number 2 or
Yeah.
3.
Right.
And I wish they had returned to it again. I wish that later in the debate, when they were having a little bit more back and forth, that he had a chance to sort of call out the ridiculous things that Trump was saying in terms that were clear, and also be clear about where he is and where the Democrats are, because the contrast could not be stronger, and it got muddied up. I wasn't sure where Trump was, and I've read all the things he said before. It's not good.
Right. Right. Because he walked out of this saying, "Oh, just leave it to the states."
Right. As if that's
Right.
that's a good thing.
And lied about the abortion pill, said that the Supreme Court said it's okay. No, that's not what the Supreme Court said about the abortion pill.
And that feels like a moderator. I mean, it's
Right.
so at what point, I mean, Judith, your point around disinformation is so important. People are struggling to get actual facts.
That's right.
And you want to believe that the place to get actual facts is the news.
Right.
That's one place.
And Trump then is already going to co-opt, like, well, the misinformation that is being spouted on the other side of the stage. I was like, are you? That was a moment for me. And then let's just, Judith, I'll let you go, and then we're going to go ahead and talk about the Black people.
I'm going to say something controversial, because I may not be on CNN ever again either. Siri or Alexa could have done a better job, y'all. They would have fact-checked it. Siri would have been like, Alexa would have been like, no, that's not true.
Hey Siri, is Trump the best president ever rated 2 times, 3 times, 10 times? I mean, it was ridiculous.
Alexa would have been like, no, that's a lie.
The little yellow, the little blue light going around. So, Black people?
Black jobs.
Black jobs. What's
Where
that?
do you get one?
I mean, I obviously, as someone who does, like, I could talk about I live and work in my Black sandbox. I appreciate a primetime debate talking about Black voters. It was something about the way the questions were framed that didn't sit right for me. Because I felt it was an opportunity to try to get a gotcha moment versus it being like, let's talk about Black issues and and the policies that address us.
The Blacks love me.
Look, Buddy's trying to weigh in. I mean, that first of all, I just want to say that I actually think first the fight they were going to have a fight over who gave HBCUs more money. That's interesting. And I'll have to say the Biden administration has done a lot for Black folks. Again, Fatima, to your point, I don't think it came across that strongly. He didn't hit all the high points, and then he tried to put some stuff in later because he was like, "Oh, I forgot this." So yeah, I think that was.
Yeah, I think if he did storytelling,
Yeah.
and like this was a format that I would have not been like question answer. I would have advised him like tell stories. Because it's actually something that he's good at. It is also, if you talk about stuff like fiction, that is obviously what Donald Trump thinks he is. And that the moderators didn't push on all his legal woes in this moment. You brought up the question, but then there was no like real and let's be clear, the president had some good singers. I have some gifts that didn't go out into public consumption. But he
You're
got
a
some singers.
loser.
What's your favorite? I mean, I don't know. The Alley Cat Brigade is probably. I see the shirts coming.
Oh, that would be cute. That would be cute.
Yeah. And so I just, don't think it wasn't suited for the ability to, I at least as someone that's spends a lot of time watching this, obviously it's like, oh, he hit 5 major issues. We were going to Fatima, at least childcare in a word was mentioned over 5 times. And the
Yeah, that
question
was going to be a
Fatima
drinking game, Fatima. So
I listen, I won
congratulations
bingo
to all the
tonight.
groups that have been doing that work.
Childcare. I won bingo. Childcare. But I actually think so. The president was naming it as a top priority, both dealing with the Trump tax cuts, which have put us in this financially constrained situation, and getting clear that he knows that childcare, elder care, paid leave, that's the unfinished business, that is something that he should have done that he could not get through. So he said it. You got to contrast it with Trump. He got asked the question the first time. He sort of dodged, talked about something else. They said, but the question was your child care plan, Mr. Trump. Can you talk about child care? Dodged it a second time. So he either has no plan or there's a plan that is going to make it worse where he's going to cut it. But in any event, they need to press on that.
Yeah, see, this is the thing, is like that's what I was saying. Like, I feel like Biden was putting out what his agenda is, and Trump had no agenda. I mean, you could hear a little bit of it, like, yes, I'm gonna cut taxes for the rich. That's what I'm gonna do. He said the green job scam, right? We know where he talked about oil and gas companies, right? So, and so like he's putting out some of these things, but actually they should have asked him about Project 2025. Right? That is your actual plan. And they did not ask anything about
all day. Especially when he was saying things like, oh, well, I agree with the Supreme Court, and don't worry, you'll have your medication abortion, not according to Project 2025, you won't.
Right.
And
he did mention that he's cut regulations, and that was a good thing, right? And so we do know that they are attacking the administrative state. But what does that look like? For him to explain, what does that actually mean to the American people when we have H2O, but it's dirty and people in Flint have nothing, right?
No, he said he has the cleanest water. He created the cleanest water ever.
Ever.
Cleanest.
Of all time.
Of all time. But climate, had an appearance. I mean, there was just some issues that oftentimes don't rise to a prime time debate.
Yeah, I'm glad that they brought climate in, but he has no answer for it. And the president has done some really good things on climate, right? But again, we didn't have enough time to chop it up with that. And I do think, again, that format left it a little flat. So hopefully people are on X reading all all the particulars.
Possibly. So,
Oh, it's gonna be a
any other
long
takeaways
election
before we
cycle,
go watch
y'all.
other commentary to find out what's overshadowed? I think people are going to spend most of the time talking about the format and the moderators.
Yeah.
So,
As
And
they should.
I will say this for Trump. This is the most presidential I've ever seen him be. Now, I'm just joking.
he definitely, but you are correct. He was as tempered as he could be, right? He did not. He did some jabs, but he wasn't like out of
He
control.
wasn't unhinged like he usually is.
He was not unhinged. That is not the bar that I'm looking for. I mean, I guess the last thing that I will say on this, because there's 4 months before people are gonna make this decision. And the issues are so serious.
Yeah.
And I think he believes the path, that Trump believes the path is to sort of bob, weave, be a little funny, and just not talk about the things that matter to people.
Right.
And
And can I just say, Fatima, but also to make migrants and immigrants the boogeyman. I mean,
yeah,
he kept coming back to it didn't matter what question
Oh,
he
what
was.
the
childcare.
question was?
He
Yeah.
went to immigration over and over again because he is playing into that fear, right? I mean, that was the black jobs thing, right? Oh, they're taking black jobs, right? It just over and over again. And they didn't even really ask him, like, well, what are you going to do about immigration? Because he said, I'm going to round people up and get them up out of here. Like, how are you going to do that, right? They didn't even dive into that, even though he kept feeding that. And that was all about, I'm going to give disinformation. I'm going to give fear because this is what the American people care about. Not the fact that insulin was cut, not the fact that we need childcare.
I just think we cannot be confused about where they are. And that's it.
Well, it's gonna be a long summer. It's gonna be 100 degrees because it's climate. Um, People are gonna need to put their children in childcare.
July
The blacks are
11th
gonna
is coming.
the blacks are gonna go get jobs.
July 11th sentencing date in New York for Trump.
Mm,
I miss you guys.
I do too. So thank you for hanging out with us. You will see these women throughout the summer. We're all on tours. Not necessarily we want to be all places, but we will be. So Higher Heights will, as I mentioned, be doing programming around the two-party conventions. We want to hear what Black women have to say about not only the Republicans, but the Democrats in this moment. And so we look forward to not only having a conversation, but gathering Black women to take action. And so, as always, thank you to Fatima Cosgraves, Judith Brown Dianis, and thank you for spending the evening. And so let's go ahead and continue the conversation online. Take
Thank
care.
you.